Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. So we are starting a new chapter, Canto 1, chapter number 5, Narada's instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. Text number 1. Sutta vacha athatam sukham asina upasinam brahachravaha deva rishi praha viprashim vinapanihi smayan iva. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sutta Goswami said, thus the sage amongst the gods, or Narada, comfortably seated and apparently smiling, addressed the rishi amongst the brahmanas, or Vyasadeva. Purport. Narada was smiling because he well knew the great sage Vedavyas and the cause of his disappointment. As he will explain gradually, Vyasadev's disappointment was due to insufficiency in presenting the science of devotional service. Narada knew the defect, and it was confirmed by the position of Vyasa. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna once again. So we'll do verses 1 through 13 today. It's a big chapter with a lot of philosophy. So we'll just take 13 verses today. So here in this verse, we see that Narada Muni is addressed as the sage among gods. So when it says gods, it actually means demigods. If we all remember in chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita, verse number 26, Krishna says, sage among demigods, I am Narada. Krishna is Narada, which is sage among demigods. Then in chapter 10 of verse 37, Krishna says, of the sages, I am Vyasa. So Vyasadeva is also considered a rishi among the brahmanas. So this is how he is addressed. Now this verse indicates that Narad Muni was smiling. And he was smiling because he knew what is the reason that Vyasadeva is disappointed. Even though he compiled the Vedas, divided into 4 parts, and yet he was disappointed. So Narad Muni, being the spiritual master of Srila Vyasadeva, he knew how to guide his disciple. That is the purpose of a bona fide spiritual master, to see what are the insufficiencies, what are the deficiencies in the disciple, and guide the disciple accordingly. Just like the doctor. The doctor does not give the same prescription to all the patients because it's different diseases for different patients, so there is different prescription. Similarly, the spiritual master also guides the disciple according to the disciple's situation, or whatever is the consciousness, level of consciousness of the disciple. Now, Vyasadeva actually had compiled the Vedas, but he had not sufficiently glorified Krishna or devotional service to Krishna. That is where the problem lied. And that was the defect which Vyasadeva himself confirmed. Now, Srila Vyasadeva is an incarnation of Krishna. And he is a scholar, a great scholar, knows all the Sanskrit shlokas. But just scholarship and knowing Sanskrit shlokas is not sufficient. It's important to understand the importance of performing devotional service to Krishna, understanding what is the purpose of the Vedas. Vyasadeva compiled the Vedas, but in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna in chapter 15, Vedascha sarvir aham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. He says, I am the compiler of the Vedas. Krishna is the compiler of Vedas, and Vyasadeva is none other than Krishna. He's an incarnation. So he says, I'm the compiler of the Vedas, and purpose of Vedas is that I should be known from the Vedas. That is the purpose. So here, just like Vyasadeva, who's a disciple, is inquiring, why am I dissatisfied? Why is it that I have, done this huge work, this huge literature, and I'm still dissatisfied? So that was an inquiry. Similarly, it's the duty of the spiritual master also to inquire. So when Narada Muni, he inquired from Vyasadeva, what was the question he asked him? Are you satisfied? What you have done in the Vedas is identifying with the body and mind as objects of self-realization. That's a huge statement. Actually, it's a thought-provoking statement that, in actually a question, thought-provoking question, which Narada Muni is asking. So, are you satisfied by identifying body or mind as objects of self-realization? You see? In other words, Narada Muni is hinting at Srila Vyasadeva the cause of his dissatisfaction. Now, Vyasadeva, great parentage, son of Parashar Muni, a great sage. So he actually had the privilege of this grand parentage. So how come he was in this situation, confused, dissatisfied? How is that possible, right? Vyasadeva has compiled the Vedas, so he should have known what is the purpose of the Vedas. He should not have identified with body or mind. Now, there are different reasons why he did that. In the Vedas, there are different sections, which is for different people in different modes of material nature, goodness, passion, ignorance, or pure goodness. Just like when we go to a grocery store and we want to buy cheese, there are so many different varieties of cheese. There's so many different brands of cheese. Why? Because there are people with different taste. There are people with, different wants and needs and desires for different kinds of cheese. So there is an option for all different kinds of people. So they can choose, I want this cheese or that cheese or whichever. It same applies in spiritual knowledge as well. So here, Vyasadeva, he should not have identified with body or mind. Now in Bhagavad Gita, the very first instruction Krishna gives to Arjuna is, you're not this body. So Srila Prabhupada says in his purports that those who are bereft of spiritual knowledge, and, so for them, it is understandable. Okay, they don't have spiritual knowledge, so they're thinking on this level. But Vyasadeva, he should have known better. What? That self-realization is transcendental to the body. It has nothing to do with the body. It's something to do with the spirit soul. It is a state of consciousness. Vyasadeva should have known. Now, Vyasadeva being despondent is not because of lack of knowledge. We shouldn't think that, he didn't have enough knowledge. In fact, in this chapter, in the beginning, Narada Muni, he starts praising Srila Vyasadeva. He knows who Srila Vyasadeva is. He says, you've prepared a great, wonderful work, Mahabharata, which is full of Vedic, different sequences. You have explained it so very nicely. But Vyasadeva, he knew he's still dissatisfied. So as a student of his guru, he's a disciple, so he's actually a student. So as a student, Vyasadeva inquired about Vedic literatures and Mahabharata, you know, and because there was a reason behind why he, compiled the Mahabharata. So Narad Muni, he is explaining to Vyasadeva that you, in your Vedas, you have fully explained the impersonal aspect of the Lord, impersonal Brahman. So why are you despondent in spite of all this? So Prabhupada explains that Srila Vyasadeva's compilations are accepted as most exalted philosophical exposition in the world. That is the appreciation of Srila Vyasadeva's work. And no one has any doubt about his scholarship. So there's no need for Vyasadeva to lament. But he was lamenting, which means something was missing. Haven't we come across in our lives, we are doing something and we think it is perfect, but we say, something is missing. There is something missing. What is it? Is it, say, for instance, cooking for Krishna? We may be expert cooks, we've cooked something, a big feast for the Lord, but then, there is, an expert cook knows what is it that is missing. There is something missing, maybe a pinch of cinnamon, or maybe this, or maybe that, that feeling is there that there is something missing. And Vyasadeva, he was lamenting because he knew something was missing. And he agreed that what Narad Muni, said, that, he's a great scholar, etc., etc. But Vyasadeva was not pacified. In the material world, if someone praises us, we grin, from, the full grin is there, and we're so ecstatic and so happy. It is like we don't think, do I really deserve this praise? Do I really deserve this appreciation? No, we are very happy and top of the world. Here, Vyasadeva, even though he heard such nice words from his spiritual master, still he was not pacified. So here we see this exchange between guru and disciple. And we can see between Vyasadeva and Narad Muni that their relationship was very transparent. This is how it should be. That, okay, the spiritual master is guiding us, and the disciple is eager to learn, eager to take the guidance, and not just hear and keep quiet. Okay. That's it. No. Inquire, share our thoughts, share our challenges that we may have in our spiritual lives, share what are the weaknesses that we have in our spiritual lives. At least I'm talking about myself. I'm not perfect. I'm still trying. So definitely there will be challenges. Definitely there are weaknesses in the spiritual life. So the best thing is to inquire. The topmost question for a disciple for his spiritual master is, how can I progress spiritually? And that question will arise when we realize, I've not reached there yet. I still have a long way to go. Srila Prabhupada says, the actual devotional service or actual Krishna consciousness begins on the day we get initiated. So what were we doing all this time till then? We're practicing. We are practicing and practicing and practicing so that we can reach that stage. So bhakti starts on the day we get initiated. So here we see that Vyasadeva, he's not pacified. So he's inquiring, Why am I dissatisfied? What is the cause? And Vyasadeva was, even though he's an incarnation of Krishna, he knew the position of Narad Muni. He knew that his spiritual master has unlimited knowledge. Now, one may say, Vyasadeva is an incarnation of Krishna. He doesn't need a guru. I mean, he is God. He knows everything. But Krishna always sets an example. In the Bhagavad Gita, he says that when, the leaders, when whatever they follow, the common men, follow in their footsteps. Whatever the great men do, common men follow. So Krishna, he also sets an example. When he came 5,000 years ago, he accepted. He took initiation from Sandipani Muni. When he came 500 years ago, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he accepted Ishvara Puri as the spiritual master in Parampara. And so here Vyasadeva has accepted Narad Muni as his bona fide spiritual master. And he knows Narad Muni has unlimited knowledge. He's bona fide. He's a direct representative of Krishna. And so he's empowered. We learn that even in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 34. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya upadakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha, which means the spiritual master coming down in strict disciplic succession is tattva darshina. He has seen the truth because he is the direct representative of Krishna. Krishna has said that within I am the super soul, and without I am the bona fide spiritual master. So here, Vyasadeva is acknowledging Narad Muni as his spiritual master, and he knows Narad Muni is the son of Lord Brahma, who is self-born. So here's a conversation going on between two exalted devotees, Narad Muni and Srila Vyasadeva. And what are they talking about? What's the update on the stocks today? Which company is, really making good money? Who is the topmost billionaire in the world now? No, they're talking about spiritual knowledge. In the material world, people are mostly on bodily concept. Their knowledge is mostly related to mind and the body. Why? Because there is not much education, spiritual education given, like you are not this body, you're the spirit soul. So when there is not enough spiritual education right from childhood, then the mind is not properly engaged. And in that situation, there is despondency. Now, Vyasadeva is considered the greatest scholar, and he couldn't figure out why was he dissatisfied. So who are we? How does the mind work? How to control the mind? We learned that in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna explains that. And the first step is to take spiritual guidance. Many times I have said this, if whatever we want to learn, we need a teacher, whether it is karate, judo, singing, music, dancing, software, anything, we need a teacher, a bona fide teacher. So unless one approach a bona fide spiritual master, how can one get rid of dissatisfaction? It's not possible. We need guidance. So Vyasadeva is now praising Narad Muni. And he's saying that, my dear Guru, you are transcendental to the three modes of material nature. You know the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are engaged in devotional service 100%. And Vyasadeva knew that Narad Muni is perfectly qualified to be a bona fide spiritual master. Why? Because he was spiritually perfect. So Vyasadeva, he actually continued glorifying Narad Muni, that you travel like, the sun travels, and he says, you're as good as the super soul within the heart. So please tell me, what deficiencies do I have? Do we really ask this question? Say we are sitting next to our spiritual master. Oh, my dear spiritual master, please tell me what's wrong with me. Please tell me all my disqualifications. Please tell me all the shortcomings that I have, or all the weaknesses. No, we just sit there and smile and Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. How are you? Good. How are you? Good. That's not a meeting with the spiritual master. Before we meet the bona fide spiritual master, we need to meditate. Meditate on our state of consciousness. Meditate on what are the devotional activities that I'm performing. Where are, think about, is my mind under control? If not, let me inquire from the spiritual master how to control the mind, how to control these desires. So you see, here Vyasadeva is inquiring from Narad Muni, please tell me what are the deficiencies in me. He says, even though I'm absorbed and following regulative principles, I am following the regulations, I am totally absorbed, and still there seems to be some deficiency. Very important, following regulations. Whenever I'm driving on the road, sometimes we see, some drivers, they'll go zoom, 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 zap, they'll just, change lanes, and as if they are, the president or the prime minister who needs to reach some meeting or some crisis, take care of some crisis in the world. No, they just zoom, 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 zoom in a rush. And in the process, sometimes they break the traffic rules. But if all the citizens are following the traffic rules on the road, there will be no accidents. There'll be no car crashes. Of course, the repair places will go out of business because there'll be no car crashes. But at least the citizens will be safe. So the following the rules and regulations is very, very important. In spiritual lives also, we have 4 regulative principles. We've talked about this before. The 4 regulative principles are, if they are followed, then the 4 spiritual pillars of our lives stay strong. The first regulative principle to follow is no meat eating, fish, eggs, chicken, onion, garlic. When we follow that regulative principle, then our spiritual pillar of mercy is very strong. No illicit sex, then our spiritual pillar of cleanliness is very strong. No intoxication, tea, coffee, then our pillar of austerity is very strong. Because if we take intoxication, how can we perform austerities? And Bhagavad Gita tells us austerity is a must. Don't we perform austerities in our material lives? Say for students, they have to, give an examination tomorrow. Don't they, sacrifice their sleep? Don't they sacrifice their food, water, or whatever it may be? It's like, don't disturb me. I have an exam tomorrow. Let me concentrate. That's a sacrifice. Or there is a project that the boss has given us. We make many sacrifices. We may have to sacrifice our vacation. We may have to sacrifice our sleep. We may have to sacrifice our time spent with the family. Why? Because there is a goal in life. We follow to attain that goal. We make sacrifices, and that's austerity. So if one does not take intoxication, then their pillar of austerity is very strong. And finally, the 4th pillar is honesty. So if one does not gamble, then definitely one will remain honest. And that is another pillar of spiritual life. So these four regulative principles are necessary if we want to advance spiritually. Just like when a person is diseased, goes to the doctor. The doctor diagnoses, gives the prescription. But along with the medication, also there are some instructions, do's and don'ts. So if we really want to get well, then besides taking the medication, we also need to follow those rules, the do's and the don'ts. Excuse me. So here we see that Srila Vyasadeva, he's talking about the disciplinary regulations and vows. And what are they? This beautifully described in this chapter. Transcendental realization, pious activities, worship of deities, charity, mercy, non-violence, studying of scriptures. Actually, if you see, all these are very beneficial to advance spiritually. And Narad Muni, being the spiritual master of Vyasadeva, he's guiding him. And he tells him the reason for his dissatisfaction. And the reason is, dear Vyasadeva, you have not talked about the glories of Krishna. Philosophy that does not satisfy Krishna's senses is worthless. We are eternal servants of Krishna, right? He is the master. We are also parts of Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mama Vamsha Jivaloke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are parts, amshas, parts of Krishna. And our constitutional position is to please the Supreme Lord. So when we perform devotional service, which is very loving and full of devotion, then that pleases and satisfies Krishna. So here, Srila Narad Muni is explaining to Vyasadeva that you have not glorified the Supreme Lord. You wrote all the Vedas, but there is no direct glorification of Krishna. We know the purpose of Vedas is to know Krishna. So if you do not glorify Krishna, how will people know Krishna? And how will they, please him or perform devotional service to him? You have compiled Vedas, but you're dissatisfied. So in other words, Narad Muni is guiding Vyasadeva to write Srimad Bhagavatam, which is nothing but glorification of Krishna and Krishna's devotees. You see? Just think about this, that Narad Muni, being a bona fide spiritual master, did not go beat around the bush. He went directly, he pointed out his defect. It's not that Narad Muni did not think, oh, if I tell him his defect, then he will stop worshipping me. He'll stop thinking of me as his guru. Should I tell him? Should I not? No, immediately pointed out the defect. That's the duty of a bona fide spiritual master, to point out, to guide, to show the way. And so he pointed out that only by devotional service can one please Krishna. So write Srimad Bhagavatam, glories of Krishna. Write about pure devotional service, because it's only pure devotional service that can lead one to self-realization. And that is a Brahma Bhuta stage. In the Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter, Krishna says, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na shochati na kankshati. Because only when one reaches that Brahma Bhuta stage, one is completely satisfied. And when one is satisfied, automatically one is blissful. There's no need to run around here, there, everywhere to find bliss. But the important point is pure devotional service. And what kind? It should be uninterrupted, unmotivated. Rupa Goswami talks about this. Anyavilashita shunyam Jnana karma nartam. Anukulyena krishnana. It has to be uninterrupted and unmotivated. And the very first step of devotional service, or the very first step that can take us to pure devotional service, is chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That is the way. That is the way Krishna talked about. That is the way Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talked about. That is what Narada Muni is guiding Vyasadeva to give in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He's actually describing the path of devotional service. He says that if the words do not glorify Krishna, they do not describe Krishna, that sanctifies, that is considered. So wherever there is Krishna Katha, the saintly people think that is a place of pilgrimage. So today, all of us who are sitting in our homes and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, our homes are considered a place of pilgrimage because Krishna Katha is being heard. On the other hand, he says that the saintly people, that is where they find pleasure. And Prabhupada says, anywhere where there is no Krishna Katha, it's considered like a place for crows. A crow that only does ka, 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 that's it, nothing else. Saintly people, they take pleasure in Krishna Katha. Wherever there is glorification of Krishna, that place is considered a place of pilgrimage. But those who are interested only in enjoying the senses, Srimad Bhagavatam says they are like crows. They will eat anything, they'll associate with anybody, they will read any magazine literature. There is no interest in Krishna consciousness, there's no interest in spiritual life, there's no interest in self-realization. You see how powerful and how strongly Srimad Bhagavatam talks about people in general. So Narada Muni, he is saying that you write a literature about Krishna and his pastimes, full of, which should be full with transcendental words to help the civilization. Which kind of civilization? That is misdirected. Why? There's no knowledge due to ignorance. So you write literature that is sung in such a way by those who are actually purified. You see? So here, Narada Muni, he's explaining to Srila Vyasadeva that such literature is very purifying. So knowledge of self-realization is connected with Supreme Personality of Godhead. See, people in general, they are performing fruitive activities. And these fruitive activities, Prabhupada explains, is short-termed if it is not used for devotional service. So the aim is to perform devotional service. Most people are engaged in fruitive work. Let me do this, and this is the fruit I will get, and I'm going to enjoy that fruit, wanting to enjoy the fruits of their activities. But Bhagavad Gita teaches us in chapter 3 and 5 that when we perform our activities, the state of consciousness should be, I'm doing it for the pleasure of the Lord, and whatever fruits I will attain from my work, I will use it in service to the Supreme Lord. Offer the results of our activities to Him. Then there is no more bondage. Yagnarthat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tad artham karma kanteya mukta sangha samachara. Mukti, if we want liberation from bondage, then we have to perform all our activities for the pleasure of the Lord. So here, Narada Muni, he is telling Vyasadeva that your vision is perfect. No problem with that. Your good fame is spotless. He's praising him. You're firm in your vow. You are truthful. So, because you have these qualifications, you can actually think of Krishna's pastimes in trance, not just theoretically. You see, let me read the pastime of Krishna. Okay, he did this. He lifted the Govardhan hill. He killed Agasura. Not theoretically, but he's saying because of your position, you can think of Krishna's pastimes in trance. And you can help people on the path of liberation. You can help them to remove their material bondage. You can help them come to the level of pure devotional service. You see, people in general, they like to read. Most people like to read, but they like to read literatures which are full of subject matter for sense enjoyment, And when they're reading, like I remember my mother used to be very, very fond of reading Filmfare and Stardust and Femina, all those literatures, which are full. One time I inquired from her. At that time, I was not Krishna conscious. I didn't know, but I would inquire from her, why do you read all this? She would go to the library and bring, new editions of these magazines. And I asked her why. She said, oh, it gives me pleasure to read about these movie stars, that how they are progressing. This one bought this beautiful home, this one bought this car, and see the outfits that they wear, etc. What benefit do we get from those subject matters? It only leads us to more material bondage. And Prabhupada says then there is no hope for liberation. But here Narada Muni, being compassionate, he's advising Vyasadeva. Now, Narada Muni is a perfectly qualified spiritual master. And at the same time, Vyasadeva is a perfectly qualified disciple. Both are properly trained, both are pure in their thought process, So why is it that Vyasadeva is despondent? He's dissatisfied. Both are fixed in their vows, both perform pure devotional service, both want to deliver the souls in the material world. But there is a reason. Krishna wants Srimad Bhagavatam to be spoken, to be written, so that we can benefit from that, so that we can get spiritual enlightenment. You see, we are, all of us present today on this call, we are very, very, very fortunate to have access to Srimad Bhagavatam. We are very fortunate that we have an opportunity to be Krishna conscious. You all probably are very grateful to Prerna because she introduced all of you to Krishna consciousness. You think it's easy? You think it's just done like that? No, it requires a lot of planning, a lot of austerities, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, and a lot of communication, building relationships. You see? It's a lot of austerity. So we are very, very fortunate that we have this knowledge. We have access to this knowledge. So it behooves us to first help ourselves to become more serious on the spiritual path. Not take it very lightly or casually. Oh, yeah, it's good. Today's class was good. Okay, done till next month. See you next month. No, this is very serious business. When Krishna will see that so-and-so soul has got an opportunity to advance spiritually, but is not taking advantage of it, is not sincerely pursuing it, is not serious on this path, then Krishna will think, should I continue to give this opportunity? Or should I find someone who's more serious to give this opportunity to? So we need to help ourselves and then help others. Reach out to our friends, our neighbors, our relatives. Give them this knowledge. Give them the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavad Gita also. Come to these programs, come to these classes, and not only help ourselves, but help others also. But the very first step is that we need to chant every day. 16 rounds every day. There is no way out. If the doctor says, based on your disease, you need to take 3 tablets 3 times a day or 2 tablets 3 times a day. But if we say, nah, let me take a quarter today and then maybe another 1/3, maybe after next week or maybe after a month, I'm not going to get well at all. I need to follow the prescription. So the prescription given to us, actually, 500 years ago, it was 64 rounds of chanting every day. Any takers? Not me. I cannot chant 64 rounds a day. That's not practical at all. So Srila Prabhupada, being the direct representative of Krishna, gave us a concession. Don't we run after discounts? Buy one, get one free. Aha, let's get that. Because there's a discount. I'm saving money. So here, Srila Prabhupada gave us a discount so we can save our time. Only 16 rounds of chanting every day. That's it. Is it that very difficult? No. If we make up our mind, then Krishna says, those who help themselves, I help them. But the first step is chanting 16 rounds attentively. That is our first step. So if we don't take the first step, then how will we take the second, third, fourth, fifth step? That's not possible. We are not demigods that can fly in the air without taking steps. No. We have to take steps. Like when we walk, what do? We take the first foot and put it down before we, lift the second one and put it down. Yes or no, right? Or we just hop, hop, hop. No, we take one step, then the next step, then we take the next step. So the very first step is chanting 16 rounds attentively. So I'll stop here at verse number 13. And if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to ask.